Reeves remained inside the Lou Sabre, staring toward Low's house. The memory of the night Angela died had released him, but it hadn't completely let him go. Low's younger face kept appearing beside the woman he had just recognized through the window. The urgency in her expression that night, the officer Reeves had sent to speak with her, the explanation that came back afterward. She didn't have information. She wanted information. For years, Reeves had accepted those words without questioning them. Now he wasn't sure why. He placed his hand on the door handle. There was no reason to sit there wondering what Low had been trying to tell him decades ago when she was inside that house. Carmen was there too, and Reeves had enough questions for both women to keep them talking for the rest of the afternoon. He pulled the handle and pushed the driver's door open. Before he could step out, Low's front door opened. Reeves stopped. He slowly pulled his door closed again. Low stepped outside first. Carmen followed. Neither woman immediately started walking. That caught Reeves's attention. Low looked in one direction. Carmen looked in the other. It wasn't dramatic. They weren't ducking behind anything or behaving like people who believed someone was chasing them. But Reeves knew what checking your surroundings looked like. He had done it too many times himself. The two women appeared to be making sure nobody was paying attention to them. Reeves settled back into his seat. A few seconds earlier, he had been ready to walk up to them and start asking questions. Now he was glad he hadn't. He watched Carmen and Low leave the house. They didn't separate. They walked together. Reeves waited before allowing his eyes to follow them farther down the street. The two women made their way toward the apartment building across from Carmen's house. Terrell's apartment. Reeves's attention sharpened. He stayed inside the Loose Sabre. Carmen and Low continued around toward the backside area of the building. Reeves couldn't hear them from where he was parked, and he couldn't see everything they were doing once they moved farther around the structure. That didn't matter. He had already learned something. Whatever Carmen had said to Low inside that house had brought both of them back to Terrell's apartment. Carmen stopped beside the loose wooden sideboard. She looked at the area carefully. This was where she had been when she entered Terrell's apartment. Low stood beside her, studying the surroundings instead of concentrating only on the building. Carmen pointed toward the area where she had been. Whomever told on me said it from this point. They had no other way of knowing I was breaking in. Low looked around. The apartment building itself didn't give them an answer. She turned her attention toward the neighboring properties and the possible sight lines leading toward the loose board. How about someone saw you from here? Carmen followed Low's eyes. I thought about that, but it couldn't be someone living in an abandoned building. Low looked back toward her. Carmen continued. Remember, whomever it was, they know Reeves and have his number. That was the part Carmen couldn't make fit. Seeing her was one thing. Anyone looking in the right direction at the right time might have noticed something unusual. Knowing who to call was different. The person hadn't called the police. They had called Reeves. That meant the person who saw Carmen already knew enough to understand that Reeves was the person who needed to hear about it. Low looked past Carmen. Something moved in the distance. At first, Low didn't react. She wasn't sure she had seen what she thought she'd seen. A woman had stepped from an apartment about a block away. A little dog was with her. Low's eyes stayed on the woman. She had seen her before. Many times. Not because Low knew her. She didn't. But people who spent enough time sitting on porches eventually learned the routines of people they had never formally met. The same cars left around the same time. The same children came home from school. The same neighbors checked their mail. And the same woman regularly walked her little dog around the block. Low reached for Carmen's attention without taking her eyes from the woman. Look. Carmen turned slightly. Low pointed without making the gesture too obvious. Is that the woman that walks her dog? Carmen turned. She caught only a small glimpse before the angle changed. It wasn't enough. I couldn't see her good. Low continued watching. The woman began walking with the little dog. Neither Low nor Carmen moved. Carmen looked toward Low. Low was still thinking. They couldn't walk up to the woman because they didn't know anything. They didn't even know if she mattered. Following her immediately wouldn't tell them much either. They already knew she walked around the neighborhood. What they needed was confirmation. Low looked at Carmen. "You go home." Carmen waited. "Sit by your window." "Act normal." "What are you going to do?" "What I always do." Carmen understood. Low would return to her porch. Sunflower seeds, neighborhood watching. Nothing that would appear unusual to anyone who had seen her doing the same thing countless times before. Carmen looked once more toward the dog walker. Then she and Low separated. Reeves watched them return. That interested him almost as much as watching them leave. They had gone toward Terrell's apartment together. Now they were separating as though whatever they needed to do required them to be in different places. Low returned to her house. Carmen went back to her own. Reeves remained parked on the opposite street corner. He didn't know what the women had done behind Terrell's apartment. He didn't know what they had discussed. But he knew they hadn't gone there accidentally. For once, Reeves resisted the urge to find out immediately. He stayed in the car. Low returned to her familiar chair on the porch. She settled into it with her sunflower seeds and looked out over the neighborhood. Nothing about her appeared different. That was intentional. Across the street, Carmen was inside her house. She sat near the large window overlooking the outside, positioned where she could see without needing to stand directly in front of the glass. Then they waited. 5 minutes passed. Nothing. Low cracked another sunflower seed. 10 minutes. A car moved through the neighborhood and disappeared at the end of the street. A child came outside and left a bicycle in the grass. Low didn't look toward Carmen's house. Carmen didn't come outside. 15 minutes passed. Then Low saw the little dog. The woman was walking it around the block. Low recognized her immediately. This time, there was no distant glimpse. There was no question about whether it was the same woman they had seen leaving the apartment. Low watched without turning her head too sharply. The woman continued with the dog. She never passed Reeves's Le Sabre. Her route took her to the right after leaving her apartment, while Reeves remained positioned on the opposite end of the street to the left. Reeves never connected the woman walking the little dog to anything happening around him. He had no reason to. As far as Reeves was concerned, she was simply another person moving through the neighborhood. His attention remained on Carmen and Low. Low waited. The dog walker continued farther down the street. Low gave her enough distance. Then she stood. She carried her sunflower seeds inside and came back out. Instead of remaining at her own house, she walked toward Carmen's. Carmen had already seen the woman from the window. By the time Low reached the house, Carmen was ready. Low joined her on the porch. Neither woman rushed. They watched the dog walker continue down the street until she reached the end of the block and turned. Carmen looked at Low. Low looked back. Now, they left the porch. From the opposite end of the street, Reeves saw them move. He straightened slightly behind the wheel. Low had returned to her porch. Carmen had returned to her house. For approximately 15 minutes, neither had done anything that appeared connected to the other. Then the woman with the little dog had moved through the neighborhood. Low had left her porch. She had gone to Carmen. And now Carmen and Low were walking together again. Reeves watched them reach the end of the street and turn in the same direction the dog walker had gone. That changed the meaning of what he had seen. Reeves looked toward the corner where all three women had disappeared. He waited. Then he started the La Sabre. Carmen and Low followed on foot. They didn't stay directly behind the woman. There was no need. Low knew the route. She had watched the woman walk that little dog around the neighborhood too many times to lose her simply because she disappeared around a corner. The two women kept enough distance to avoid drawing attention. Whenever the dog walker slowed, Carmen and Low slowed. Whenever she moved farther ahead, they allowed the distance to remain. Neither woman spoke much. There wasn't anything to say yet. They were trying to answer one question. Where did she go when the walk was finished? The woman continued around the block. The little dog stopped occasionally before moving again. Carmen and Low stayed back. Eventually, the route began bringing the woman toward the apartment building where Low had first noticed her. Carmen saw it before Low said anything. The dog walker approached the same building. Then the same entrance. She went inside. Carmen stopped. Low stopped beside her. For several seconds, neither woman spoke. They had their confirmation. The woman Low had seen leaving the apartment with the little dog had walked her normal route around the block and returned to the same place. Now they knew where she lived. They still didn't know whether she had anything to do with Carmen being reported to Reeves, but they knew exactly where to find her. Low looked toward Carmen. Carmen looked back toward the apartment. Neither woman approached the building. They had learned what they came to learn. That was enough. They turned away. Instead of taking the same route back, Carmen and Low crossed the lot, cutting through to reach home faster. Neither noticed the LeSabre. Reeves noticed them. He had repositioned himself by then and watched the two women cross the lot. His eyes moved from Carmen and Low to the apartment building. Then something became clear. They hadn't simply gone for a walk. They had followed someone. Reeves looked toward the building again. The woman with the dog. The ordinary movement he dismissed minutes earlier suddenly wasn't ordinary anymore. He knew who she was. And if Carmen and Low had followed her home, there was a problem. Reeves started the car. The woman had already returned inside her apartment by the time Reeves pulled up. He parked in front of the building and got out. There was no hesitation in the way he approached the entrance. He knew where he was going. Reeves reached her door and knocked. Nothing happened immediately. He knocked again. The door opened. The woman stood on the other side. She looked at Reeves. There was no surprise strong enough to make her step backward. No alarm. Just recognition. Reeves didn't waste time. "You've been compromised." The woman stared at him. "How?" Reeves glanced briefly down the hallway before looking back at her. "You were followed." Her expression barely changed. "By who?" "Carmen." That got her attention. Not fear, attention. Reeves continued, "She wasn't alone." The woman waited. Low was with her. The dog walker looked at Reeves for another second. Then she stepped slightly away from the doorway. Reeves lowered his voice. "They followed you around the block?" "Watched you come back here." The woman absorbed the information with a calmness Reeves didn't particularly like. "You need to come with me." "No." Reeves looked at her. "They know where you live." "I heard you. I'm telling you you've been compromised. And I'm telling you I'm not going anywhere." Reeves studied her. He knew enough about the woman standing in front of him not to confuse calmness with ignorance. He had seen what she could do. He remembered the first safe house, the gunfire tearing through the walls, the 4 attackers outside, then the other shots. Single, measured, deliberate, one target after another. When Reeves finally looked outside, 4 bodies were on the ground, and 1 block over, the woman now standing in front of him had been on a narrow balcony looking down toward the street. She had raised one hand toward him, then disappeared inside. Reeves knew exactly what kind of confidence he was dealing with. That didn't make him like her answer. Carmen isn't going to stop. The woman gave him a look that suggested the information didn't concern her nearly as much as Reeves thought it should. And Low? Reeves didn't answer immediately. The woman understood enough. She wasn't worried about either one. Reeves tried once more. "Come with me." No. Her answer hadn't changed. Neither had her expression. Then she said it. "I'm a perfect shot." Reeves remained silent. The woman looked directly at him. "They'll leave me alone if they know what's good for them.